Hello everybody, Angel Arts here, and welcome back once again to another Let's Talk, Let's Discuss, Let's Analyze The Walking Dead, Telltale's The Walking Dead, Season 2, Episode 3 this time. I am joined here once again with four of my very good YouTube friends, and we're just going to dive right in and talk about our thoughts on what's been going on in this season. We're more than halfway through, so let's get right to it. Chronologically, the scene opens up again with Clementine and Sarah. It looks like they're sort of on a bathroom break of sorts, and we get to meet Troy by name this time, and we have that little conversation with Carver. Thoughts on that opening scene before we get the big giant massive Walking Dead?
Well, I'm going to shout out that I got the polls now.
Okay. Definitely really helped set the mood for that sense of captivity, that sense of just unease, unsettling, like you didn't know what was going to happen throughout their stay at wherever. We're just gonna I'll just call it Carver's settlement or whatever, Carver's department store.
Carver Town.
Carver Town. And yeah, no. Let everyone else go from there.
I thought it was just a unique scene because you're like, I say, you could still say Sarah is still believing in that friendship unless you became actual friends with her. She's still holding on to that friendship, that innocence. I also noticed that when you saw the radio, you had an option to click on, I used to own a walkie-talkie, and I actually remembered that, and it felt like it was a memorable thing to look at and he said, well, yeah, everybody's parents are dead. And Sarah makes a very funny comment saying, well, my dad's still alive. And
can we say foreshadowing?
Yeah.
Can we say foreshadowing?
But I just liked it how you could observe that radio, and because I noticed it. That was the first thing I noticed when you looked at Carver, or when he had that conversation.
For me, it was the weakest intro, I think, so far. It's not as explosive as the other intros have been. That said, you do get some sense of where the characters are, both Troy and Carver. Because if you keep staring at Carver, he slaps you.
Yeah,
and that's like, okay, he's a bad man, and and Troy is just this henchman, and just that those few scenes really, translates very well into that. I think.
Kathleen,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think this wasn't as explosive, as you said, as some of the other intros to the different episodes. But I do also believe, I also agree with you, Hart, that it definitely set up the whole standard for this being this very captive environment, this very like jail-like environment. And the Carver, that's what his name is, right? Okay.
Bill Carver.
Yes, Bill Carver. He, what's really creepy about his character is that he has this way of manipulating people, trying to get them to go along with whatever he's doing by promising them that they won't be physically harmed if they go along with what he's saying. And the thing is that he's so unpredictable that we know that that's not true, that never works.
It's just a loose cannon, yeah.
And so I was really rebellious against him and had some repercussions from that. I'm pretty sure my Clementine got slapped at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, I don't agree with what he's saying. I don't think that he is going to spare anyone just because I go along with what he's doing. So I mean, I think it's interesting. It kind of sets up how different people react to situations like that. I'd love to hear how you guys react to that as we go along to his personality.
Go ahead,
Logan.
I should also forward this, that in my decisions, I try to essentially brown nose my way out of harm in any situation with Carver, because I didn't know what they were going to do in this situation. I actually, in parts of it, I was expecting, what if a conversation choice I make actually leads to a death, whereas deaths only happen in action sequences typically. What if I could actually say something that just has him shoot me right then and there? So I was trying to just play it safe and not agitate the bomb any further.
And I think anybody would do that in that situation. Anybody would not try and light the powder keg or make it the fuse go faster and faster. You try and slow it down as much as you can, or you try to put it out and say, you know what, I'm just gonna go with it. I'm just gonna try and avoid harm's way and everything. I think the title, the episode's title gives it away. You want to stay out of harm's way, but I agree with Logan. You just wanted to try and brown nose your way, but still stay true to yourself.
I totally agree with what you're saying, Logan, about trying, and Carson about not trying to, put fire on the fire keg.
Fireworks stuff,
yeah, and also that comment plus David's comment about how you interact with Carver, and if you try to cross him, then he ends up smacking Clementine. I really surprised myself in this episode as a whole when I was controlling Clementine, because normally I tend to, for me personally, I tend to do that, to do the brown nosing, to try to stay on somebody's good side, to avoid conflict as much as possible, and then look for a weakness, and then do what I need to do. But I guess I was influenced heavily by our last discussion about, I guess I just went into this episode really enjoying the idea of a snarky Clem, and I made a lot more.
He didn't take it. Yep. And he didn't take too kindly to that the second time around. First time he was humoring it. Now it's I made many liberal uses throughout the playthrough of just using the silent snarky Clem stare as her response, not only to Carver but also to Troy. And this entire time I was thinking, man, I'm playing Clementine really fearless and admittedly possibly reckless too. And I really surprised myself, because normally I would probably play a character a little more conservatively. But as a question to all of you, because I really am glad that Kathleen brought this up, and you touch on it more later on, but while we're on the subject, Kathleen was talking about Carver's philosophy a bit, and we really start to get into, in this episode, why he does the things that he does, what his mentality is. What do you guys think about how he sees the world, and how what he sees as this is what you need to do in order to survive? He despises weakness, that's for one thing. Which
it's just that he totally lacks empathy.
Yeah.
And it almost makes him unhuman. It doesn't. It just scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
It's so creepy because you don't. He believes very firmly in what he's doing.
Yeah.
But it's just lacking any sense of empathy. And sure, I'm all for law and order and stuff like that. But when it's not backed up with any sort of empathy or emotion, it can't survive.
Oh yeah, it loses that human touch.
He ended the way he did because of that, probably.
And I'm gonna jump into that. I kind of know what he's talking about. There's a line you draw when it comes to law and order, and this is the kind of society you want to build, to what we can say is Carver Town. And Carver Town, like I mentioned in my video, is like a gulag almost. It's like it's a strict law and order. We will make you our little prisoner and we'll force you to do labor, and only the strong survive. It's like he's taking some Darwin theories and saying it's survival of the fittest. If you're not fit, we're going to get rid of you and kill you, so you're not a problem to our society. And if you don't, and it is inhumane. It's really kind of scary because he doesn't show any good morals. He's only showing I have to be like this tough guy to show that this is the kind of world we need to build. And once we only have strong people, then we won't need then all these little sheep are gonna follow us, and we'll be the fittest of them all.
And guess I'll jump in. I just need to remember because I'm still kind of iffy with names. What was the name of the one-armed man you met initially?
Reggie.
Reggie. Okay, that was it. But I'm going to agree with him. Like he doesn't use empathy because he doesn't feel as if he needs empathy. He doesn't see empathy playing a role in the world he wants. And the interesting thing I saw about how he controls people is first of all, yeah, he definitely exerts a dominance over them. I definitely feel like some sort of dictatorship going on, but it's almost like 1984, freaking like. The people outside the walls, he doesn't let them in until they almost in a sense until they learn to love and appreciate him, until their minds work his way like Reggie's was about to.
They have to earn their way in, right?
And that's only through
I agree with Logan. I actually don't think that his methodology is as honest as he thinks it is. And the whole thing about the survival of the fittest thing, Darwin never said that. It was another theorist that said that. So it's like that idea in itself isn't really scientifically correct. It's a whole philosophy behind it. And I really think that Carver is this master manipulator. He thrives on power, and you can see that any time you undermine his authority, it clearly affects him on an emotional level. And I feel like that's the truest when you come down to it, there's these layers that he says are morality, but when you come down to it, I think that deep down, if you really question his authority, that's what him as a character is about. That's what he's driven by,
Yeah.
So that's just my thoughts on it.
And I'm curious, I'm just going to toss this statement out there. I remember reading somewhere that some philosopher said that all cruelty or something spawns from weakness or some personal fear or something like that. I don't know if there's some because again, even though he's long gone, I'm interested. I'm curious. I want to see. I've always wanted to know what could cause Carver to become what he is now, amidst all of this chaos.
That's a good observation.
I don't know. I'll just throw it out there. Okay.
And the other quote would be, and I think this would affect Carver's mind, but I probably am jumping too far, is absolute power corrupts absolutely, and he pretty much had absolute power, and it started to change his mind and the way he was thinking, probably.
He's probably insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But okay, so I'll just.
I like that quote a lot that you said, Logan, and we'll explore more about Carver as we continue our conversation. The thing that really struck me with Carver is the irony in what his personal motivations are, because as Luke had said in the second episode, that Carver's biggest motivation is family, and the reason why he's trying to take back his people is because he's trying to take back his family. But the irony in that is, when I think of family, I associate empathy, and I associate the thought of humanity, and I associate, these are things that just seem really out of place when the way he behaves when you're talking about someone who cares about family so much. Yeah. So that was just really, in my head, really twisted.
Oh yeah.
I think he just wants someone to succeed him as a power-hungry guy. I mean, someone like him.
Yeah, because he said several times that he's trying to raise his kids and the young generation so that they are equipped with what they need to be equipped in order to survive. And that's probably why he is, not just because Clementine is a child, because I don't honestly think that Carver sees her as a child. I think he sees her as a potential for the next generation, which is different than a child. So
because in here, we've heard people say, in this world, you're not young, you're not old anymore.
Yeah.
And it was the homeless guy who said that, right?
Yeah.
Chuck.
Chuck.
Okay.
Let's get to the truck scene.
So we're now in the truck scene, and there's awkward silence until finally Kenny, surprise, surprise, is the one who breaks the silence, and he begins spouting orders to the rest of the group. Thoughts on that scene?
It's like old times in season 1 all over again, and trying to take charge. But I played Clementine as trying to calm him down because I didn't want to be reckless because I could clearly see we were outnumbered in this situation.
Well, as for me, I guess I'll jump in on this. I decided, I think I was the one when Kenny was spouting orders. I started to hear like they're saying, "Oh, you don't want to mess with Carver. You don't want to do anything. Don't do anything stupid. Carver, he's worse than what you think. He's really bad and everything." And I was thinking I had to get out of the situation. I'm pretty sure that's how I was thinking. But at the same time, when I heard Carlos make a statement, he said, "I'm only pointing out that Walter is dead because rash actions have consequences to it." And that is capitulation. I was like, yeah, I agree with him on that because always rash actions have consequences to it. And I'm like, yeah, probably we should make Kenny calm down. And if he can get us out of here, great. But if not, then it's better he just does nothing.
Yeah.
I'm actually very, very torn about this scene. I said, I remember replying that I should help him and that I trusted him. Then again, he's going up against weapons, guns. He is a very rash person.
Yeah.
But I can totally see where it's coming from. Because if you get cooped up in a small area with people you don't trust, that could just as easily spell your doom than the walkers. Because humans are the most dangerous things out there.
Unpredictable anyway, yeah.
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 So I went with him. Sure, let's do this.
I was honest. I told him I was scared of what could happen.
Yeah, I did too.
Kathleen, did you agree or disagree with Kenny in what he was saying?
I agree with Dave that I felt torn, and I was really indecisive. Like, I started to side with him, and then I started to come to my senses and was like, wait, this is a little, I think that we do need to try to overcome Carver, but we need to have tactics. We need to be smart about this. And I'm glad that whatever happened, I don't know, I guess he got, like, hit by the door.
Yeah, they stopped the break-in.
I'm glad that happened because that would have been disastrous.
Yep.
Rebecca even tells him later on that she essentially figured him out and said, I know what your problem is. Your problem is you don't think things all the way through. And which pretty much I think describes Kenny pretty well. He has very good intentions, but he doesn't always think through to things, and he tends to depend on, oh, well, we'll just cross that bridge when we get there and we'll improvise.
Improvising.
But there's always pros and cons to that, because at the same time, you can have the argument of, well, if you sit on your hands the entire time trying to decide what you're going to do, an opportunity that you would not necessarily have later on might pass, and you'll miss your window to escape or do something. So I can understand where he's coming from, because you do need one thing that you can rely on Kenny about, because I try to give credit where credit is due, is that he always tries to take action. He wants to do something, and one can argue whether that something is happening at the right time, or if he needs to wait and look and be a little bit more calculated in what he's doing. And I think that is why pairing him up with Lee in the last season, if you played Lee in that way, was a good counterbalance to Kenny when he was being a little bit less calculated about things.
Yeah. I feel like there are very, very important scenes in that. Like, he said, I feel like Kenny was probably going through that scene. He was saying, we don't get cooped up, we're in danger and all that stuff. And I'm thinking, did Kenny go through this in the past or something? Like, was he in the army, which would be very reasonable because he's able to use his own resources and surroundings around him. And what I felt like there's a balance, like you were mentioning, with Lee and Kenny, and I'm hoping that Clem is now going to fill that gap. If he will put the balance between Kenny and Clem now. And And I remember this scene very well. He looks at Clem and he says, like, Clem, look, do you trust me? And I admitted, I said, I'm scared. He says, it's okay to be scared. And I'm thinking, is he trying to be now a stepdad to Clem?
Well, I can feel so. Like he probably feels some protective. He probably feels protective of her, considering that, again, it's like kind of like how we were glad to see him back in the last episode. It's like she's a familiar face. He's some form of like constant, like there's some form of continuous stability or something like that. I don't know. Like, I don't know. He doesn't. I don't think he wants to lose Clementine because that's still like.
It was already tragic to lose Duck.
Yeah. The way I see Kenny is he is through and through a family man, and he does anything for his family. And when he lost his family, that's when he started to deteriorate. And the time when Kenny started to regain himself was when he met Sarita. Because Sarita said that when she found Kenny, he was not in a very good shape. And I'm assuming that also included a mental state. So in Sarita, he found a new purpose. He found a new family in her because she essentially became not a replacement to Katja, but essentially a new wife figure. And then he runs into Clementine. And again, Clementine's not replacing Duck. No. But I guess Kenny is trying really hard to regain meaning in his life, and in order for him to live it, and by finding Sarita and Clementine, like once again he finds himself in the comfort zone of, okay, I'm a family man again. I have something to protect. This is what I need to function.
He has someone to have compassion for and to feel
and
more of that
share emotions with.
Kenny is the other side of Carver, because like Carver, he is a family man. Family's important to him, but it's very different. It's
a warped perspective of family.
Exactly. I see that parallelism is interesting, I think, between the two of them, and yet they're at odds at each other.
I was looking at it and I was thinking, like, does he mean like a family or does he mean like an army? Because it seems like he's had a very unique view on this.
Yeah.
Doors, he bam. I remember seeing something like that on.
Bam, knocks him out.
I remember seeing something like that on Jackass. So for some reason, he didn't emotionally saw something like that on, and so I was, oh hey, look at that. But no, then
doors open, and not only do you see Troy, but you also see Tavia for the very first time.
Yes, I made a comment to that. I'm sorry,
I
have to steal your job on this, David. The moment I saw Tavia, I was having like my little lore-gasm, like, oh my god, it's Tavia! Oh my god, the 400 Days people are here! And like I mentioned in my second episode, I actually went back and I had to fix everything in 400 Days because the damn thing wasn't loading. I mentioned this to Angel Lords.
Yeah.
So I did save everybody, and I was like, oh my god, I got everybody here. I gotta have a lore-gasm here.
The minute I saw Tavia, I was like, oh god, no, that was what it was, and then I felt, then I'll start hitting me like, oh crap, I saved everyone, they're all here, they're all working here. And
yeah, and Tavia has this very different personality.
Oh yeah.
Than the one she was in 400 Days.
And I saw her, and I was like, you treacherous little pig. You're going on my list. Yeah, I was like,
Kathleen, your reaction when you saw Tavia?
I actually didn't remember that she was 400 Days until you guys mentioned that, and then I looked up the picture and I was like, oh yeah, she is.
You can never forget that big hairdo. You can never.
I'm so bad with names.
No problem.
But yeah, once I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, that's the girl. But yeah, I mean, I felt that way about Bonnie as well. I didn't really trust her at all this whole episode. So yeah.
I think. Go ahead, Carson.
I was a little skeptical when I saw Bonnie in episode 2. I was like, wait, why is she here? I thought she went with those people. And when she showed up with Carver, I was like, oh, you treacherous little snake, you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think they were implying that a good amount of time had passed since the end of 400 Days going into episode 3. And I'd like to believe that Tavia might have been a different person back in the day, and then whatever circumstances that occurred has changed her over time. Because yeah, her personality just didn't fit for me, and I based on the conversation you ended up talking with Bonnie, she says that apparently things around that Carver Town wasn't as bad as it is now. It's just something changed.
Yeah.
Like maybe Carver snapped at some point. Maybe he was a legit leader, like at the beginning, and then something happened and it just went downhill from there. So
Yeah.
But then we go and are taken into, I guess, the outside area where you have to earn your way. You earn your way into the fold, basically. And this goes for not only people who strayed, but newcomers who, I guess, arrive.
Sorry, I need to jump into there. I don't know if everybody saved Alvin and Nick. Did anybody save Alvin or Nick?
I saved all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Did you save Nick?
Yes.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, well, there were specific scenes, like when you're walking into, I guess, the supermarket, you could call Carver Town. They will grab Alvin on the side, and I was thinking, oh boy, this is not going to end well for Alvin.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of worried what was going to happen to him, but we'll get to that later. I just think it's very unique scenes. Like, if you don't have Alvin there, like, my friend, he actually played episode 2 and 3. He killed Alvin, and I was like, you idiot, and we skipped that scene. It was a very unique scene that he's like, okay, Carver wants to talk to you, Alvin. This is not going to end well for you.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's everyone's opinion on that.
I didn't save Alvin, but I don't go back and change any of my decisions. I hated that he died, but I live with what decisions I make. So
yeah, you go through with it. It's your step. Yeah.
Angel Arts, Logan, David.
With Alvin, then.
Yeah, he says that. What's he saying? He said, "Oh, if Carver wanted to do something with me, he would have done it already."
I'm like,
And I'm like, no. He wants to do that in private with you, my friend.
Yeah.
He wants to enjoy whatever he's about to do, and he doesn't want. He wants to be a psychological thing. That's how he works.
Yeah.
I pretty much expected that of Carver to take Alvin. I think the thing that struck me more was them taking Carlos away from Sarah.
I was about to mention that.
And the immediate effect of Sarah. I mean, you knew that going in, but just clearly seeing how dependent poor Sarah is to her dad. Like she didn't even feel like she could function without him there. And
yeah.
How did you guys react to that?
I want to hear what Kathleen says about it, because she came up with the disability disorder, I think it was, or something.
Well, I said that sometimes when young children go through a traumatic event, that sometimes they resort to the age that they were when they went through that. And I don't know if she's going to get through it, because it seems like she was still kind of lingering in that, even though, but I think that shows that, like, it's a very interesting contrast between Clementine and her. I'd like to hear what approaches you guys took, because with me, I was compassionate at times with her, but also very stern with her as well. At times I told her, hey, you need to toughen up. You need to get used to this, because this is the way the world is. Because if she doesn't get used to it, she's not going to survive. So, but I'd like to hear what, some of your approaches were about that.
Sure. And we can jump, if you need to, you can reference future events in the storyline. I think this is a valid point to talk about Sarah. So go ahead.
For me, I guess I'll jump in first. For me, I felt like, I was a little compassionate. Like, there was those choices where you say, grow up, I don't know, or he'll be back. I said he'll be back because I felt like they were not going to kill Carlos. He's probably the only doctor around, and one of the very few they have, and they need him alive, or else they're pretty much screwed in the end. And
yet, they broke his hands, and doctors need their hands.
He only broke 2 of his fingers. He still got those 3, I guess, right here.
True.
And
they bandaged it up. They bandaged it up.
Yeah, they bandaged it.
But it's still like when you're sewing stitches and stuff, that requires very fine work. So.
Yeah.
I thought he did all right with the hands he had later on in other events.
Yeah, in all honesty, I don't know if anybody was curious about it. I was curious of what they wanted for Carlos for. I was like, where are you taking Carlos, and why do we never get to see where Carlos is? I'm just curious, what is he needed for? Probably medical stuff. I can understand that. I don't understand if you don't want to tell us, but I was curious where he went sometimes. But I was compassionate with Sarah. But at the same time, I wanted to make her grow, like learn these ways to survive, like Lee did with Clementine. Like make her become more mature and survive, but still having good morals inside her. Anybody else?
Yeah.
I was thinking about the same lines. At the treehouse. I did actually help her with her like work
or whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
because I like to. She was in a very traumatic state, stuff like that. So I tried to show compassion. That said, several other times I said like, you have to toughen up again, because this is the world we live in now. And I found it curious that in my LP, I actually played like I thought Hawk would play, and Hawk played like I thought I would play. So,
it's interesting.
Yeah, Hawk can explain his line of thought. He really surprised me. And I like that.
You're not the only one. Carson even, I was watching Carson's LP, and he thought that I was going to do something else from what I did in the treehouse. And several people who commented said that they completely surprised them, because I guess when you take it at face value, a lot of people consider that the kinder thing, the nicer thing to do is to help her. But I actually did not help her. And
wow, I'm surprised.
I chose not to help her, and I was definitely very much in the great minority in that.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
But the reasoning behind why I didn't help her was because it was more because I was thinking that the kinder thing to do for Sarah was to help her fall so she can get herself up, pick herself up, and learn to take care of herself, because clearly she is so dependent on other people coming to her rescue, coming to help her, that she just hasn't been given the opportunity to really try to
be independent
and stand on her own 2 feet. And because I don't want to get too much into this, because I've already gone through it in my Let's Play, but I mean, because we were directly under Reggie at that moment, I thought that whatever consequences would happen to her if she didn't do her work would be far less dire, and she would survive it. Like, she'd be able to get through it.
Which is true.
Those were the type of, I selectively decide which things to practice tough love with Sarah. If this was some direction that came directly from Carver, and Carver was right in that room, then I would have helped her, because the situation is different. So yeah, I mean, the whole thing about, you can either give a man a fish or teach him to fish. Yeah. That was pretty much my mentality, and it wasn't because I didn't like Sarah, it's because I cared about her and her well-being, because God forbid something happens to her dad, which it does. God forbid she gets separated from the group, which she does. She needs, like, if she doesn't know it now, later on might be too late. So.
And though I don't think I did that a lot in my run through it, I completely agree with you on that, Ajax.
And well, when you say treehouse, you're talking about the greenhouse, what we should get to later.
Yeah, the greenhouse.
Yeah, you guys called it treehouse. Like,
sorry.
That's my Swedish.
It's a house with trees in it.
Any other thoughts about Sarah before we move on, and how you treated Sarah before we move on?
Well, when we get to the greenhouse scene, I will talk about my part.
Okay, that's fine.
And just that one little, and I felt really bad because I was trying to like cover for her the whole time and seeing what happened. I'll wait till we get to that later. But when Carver's giving everyone that first lecture or whatever, and that whisper scene, that scene, I'll wait till we get to that. But yeah, the whole time I was trying to cover for her because I didn't want anything to befall her, because I knew that if I did, Carlos would not be able to forgive himself, and because in a way, didn't Carlos like entrust us to protect her or something like that.
Yeah.
A couple episodes back.
So
I felt some responsibility towards that still, I guess.
Yeah, I did also tell Carlos that I would take care of her, but it may not necessarily be in the same way that he thinks she needs to be taken care of. So,
Fair enough, yeah.
But yeah, so we hear Carlos's speech. I mean, not Carlos's. We hear Carver's speech on the PA system, pretty much reiterating what we've already talked about. You know, these people may have strayed, but we can rise up and be the better man or woman, and find forgiveness for them.
And we can show them the light of redemption, and we can make them feel happy, and we can do all this and that.
Yeah.
Every time Carver opened his mouth, I was just like, I can't believe this bullshit rhetoric coming out of his mouth. Anyone? I mean, like, seriously? You guys believe this? Blah 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 blah. Yeah, right.
David, I said this in your comments, David, but like your reactions throughout this whole episode was gold, because I'm not saying you're not an expressive person, David, at all, but it's just you just really got into what was going on in the story and what Carver was talking about. You were just not having any of it.
And redemption here, forgiveness.
Oh,
by proving
all this
your worth
crappy rhetoric.
Through what will undoubtedly be hard work.
Not buying it.
The path,
Look.
and we'll welcome you back with open arms.
Here, take the carrot. Take the carrot. Yeah, you go. You go, Carver. This can end well for you. Look, Psycho.
And I just loved watching you.
Really? Are you listening to this guy?
You cannot believe him. He's a bullshit liar.
Which that factored into the plan I had for trying to escape, but we'll talk about that later.
Well,
so go ahead.
When someone goes out of their way to convince you that they have their best interest, your best interest in mind, that's usually a red flag.
Yes.
Like, if you're really a genuine person, you don't need to put
someone
into convincing people you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're totally right.
Yep.
So we end up meeting Reggie, who apparently was supposed to leave with the group, but he tripped and fell, and he got left behind. And you got to hear his story. What were your guys' first impressions of Reggie during this point?
I thought he represented what someone who is completely broken by the system Carver had in place. I thought he represented what we could become if we didn't stand our ground.
Mm-hmm.
At first, probably a lot of people, I panicked and thought that maybe Carver's men did that, removed his arm for him, forcibly as a punishment or something, until they explained further in detail about that. I was still a little bit on edge. I didn't know if he was the quote unquote patrolling, supervising officer of the prisoners. Yeah. I didn't know if he could be trusted just yet.
My first reaction, the moment I saw his arm gun, I was like, oh shit, what did they do to him? What the frick happened to this guy? That was in my head, of course, and I was like, oh, whoa. And then they say, oh yeah, this happened long before you guys got away. And I was like, oh, so is this after you try to help him get away, or is it right when it happened? And when they explained what happened to his arm, and I was like, oh, okay, never mind. It can't work. It can work then, probably. It can work. And I watched your Let's Play, Hark. I was trying to put that in words, but you said, oh, so amputation can work. I was trying to say that in words, but I couldn't in my head. And what I really thought was, when you start to talk to this guy, and he's trying to tell you, oh, if I get back in the group, I can do all this good stuff and help you guys out. And he's like, you can't be. They're all saying you can't be serious. You cannot be serious. Look, it's not bad here. And I'm thinking, oh shit, he's drank the food. I don't know if you guys know this first. He drank the Kool-Aid. I'm like, oh no, Jim Jones all over.
Do you blame him though, Carson? Do you blame him for that?
It's yes and no, really.
Okay.
I do kind of blame him because he's stayed with he shouldn't be trying to sympathize with these crazy people. They are literally insane. Or they're very brutal, almost like Nazis, Soviets, whatever you want to reference to. They are brutal and insane. But I don't blame him because he's been with them too long, and he's trying to fight these these terrible conditions that he's living under, and he wants to get back into the normal conditions.
Yeah.
So I can't blame him for that. So it's yes and no. It flips.
Okay.
It's a coin flip.
The rest of you? Thoughts?
Well, first of all, I have to say, like, he's voiced by, I think it's Kumail, is that how you say his name? Once I heard his voice, I was like, oh my god, it's the dude from Portlandia! He's like a comedian. He's super funny. If check out his stuff on YouTube or something, like, later on.
What'd you say it was called again?
It's Kumail.
Yeah, Kumail Nanjiani.
Yeah.
You said,
I
like,
can't
you
pronounce
said
his name.
I'll
you said
put a link in the
Portlandia.
description.
You
Yeah,
mentioned
he's in
Portlandia.
Portlandia. He's a comedian. And so, like, I was just overwhelmed by that when I first heard his voice. I was like, oh my god, it's him. And I think, you know, it was great having, like, a cool little cameo with a celebrity there, but also, like, even his role was a little bit comedic. Like, I don't know if it's just because I'm familiar with the voice actor, but, like, I was just like, this is ridiculous. This guy is just, like, happy-go-lucky in a zombie apocalypse.
Without an arm.
Yeah, and he's like, hey, yeah, guys, like, here I am, you know, with the stump, and he's just making jokes about it, and it's like, dude, like, that's not cool. Like, and what's funny is that really is his type of humor, too, so he was able to, like, retain that within the role as well. So I found that pretty enjoyable, you know.
Go ahead, David.
I was actually not very fond of this voice actor.
Well, okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
No. Yes. Again, English is not my first language, so I might be wrong here, but I didn't feel that it really, you know, hit the standard for the Walking Dead games. The later part in the greenhouse, that was very good. But in the initial part, I was like, I'm not too sure about this. That said, his character is like, you know, he's what you become if you believe what Carver is saying.
Yeah.
So I was like, nope, I don't trust this guy.
That.
Nope. So yeah, that's it.
Wow.
And we get to see some of the other prisoners who are also there.
Yeah, we don't quite interact with officially until later.
Jane.
We meet Jane and we meet Mike. David was very excited to meet Jane.
Oh, beautiful.
She was very beautiful to you.
Was Jane the, like, cute one with the short hair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I loved her.
I didn't know her name at first. I was thinking of my name. What am I gonna name this girl when even after I find out her real name?
You're just gonna call her a random name just on the off chance.
Your name is Betsy from now on. Your name is Betsy. I don't care if it's Jane. Your name is Betsy.
I have to tell you, Dave, that I don't blame you too much, because if Jane was a boy, she'd make a really cute boy. So
my friend thought that too. He was looking at her and he's thinking, "Is that a boy? I can't tell. He looks kind of hot." So I was like, "Dude, calm down. It's a girl."
Yeah,
I'm very much I love tomboy girls. So some people have actually asked me, David, are you sure you're not gay? Because you like these short-haired women. I'm like, pretty sure.
Well,
still,
the thing about Jane that just immediately struck me as soon as I saw her, and then it was reaffirmed even more when I got to know her personality, is I immediately thought Jack from Mass Effect. Immediately thought Jack. Even
I thought that too.
Yeah, even the quality of her voice. Like, her voice doesn't sound exactly like Jack's, but just the attitude and the sass and just her overall look and build. I was like, oh my gosh, that's Jack if she was in the Walking Dead universe. So.
And Dave, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Who would you put on the scale higher, Jane or Molly?
Jane.
Oh.
Just purely out of looks. I don't know Jane all that much.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I was gonna say.
Jane has this level of mystery to her too that, like, makes her even more attractive, in my opinion.
Yep.
But I'm gonna
Micah, mine.
David's already made her claim.
Me and David are gonna fight now, fight to the death for Jane.
Kathleen, I can picture you be like Golem and you're holding on Jane like, she's mine.
She's mine.
I've already made. I mean, it's only fair. I've already made my claim on Luke, so.
I and I don't know if it was just, but I don't know if it was just me, but at the quick jump to the end, I was really liking Jane throughout the whole story until the ending, in which I saw this other side of her, like in a manipulative like side, and that sort of, and I just feel like the freaking buzzkill in the room. Everyone just went.
See, I actually.
But no, I just felt uneasy about Jane because that ending. I was like, wait a minute, what are we getting ourselves into now with this?
Well, it's without context, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I found it. I don't know if this is just me saying it, but I found like Jane kind of attractive from just. I was like, oh, interesting. But then when she started to talk,
more competition.
but then when I found out like what happens later in the story, I'm like, oh, maybe I just want to distance myself from her and go back to Molly.
So I don't know what happened between her and Troy, but that definitely was like the way she was like trying to lead him on, and then I was like, oh, I'm a bit nervous now.
I want to point this out. Like it's not the other guy I want to mention. I actually liked how Mike was kind of portrayed in the beginning when you first met him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what everybody's opinion was, and when you first hear him, first I thought he was a bit of a dick, and I was like, oh, okay, it's gonna be one of those guys. Oh, God.
Another Vernon. No, sorry, not another Vernon.
What's his name? It's Lily's dad.
Another
Yeah,
Larry.
Larry. It's gonna be another Larry. Great. Gotta deal with this. But then he starts to be nice and kind of warm up. I was like, "You're my new Kenny. You're a badass."
Okay.
Kenny, you're Kenny Prime. Kenny, you're Kenny 2 now. So what now?
He doesn't have the beard, so
He can grow
I
it.
was gonna mention that at some point in this discussion.
Jeez.
Oh God, what was your guys' first opinion of Mike when you first hear him?
He's a bit of a dick when he's tired.
Yeah.
I tried talking to him. He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, good moment. All right.
I didn't really have any opinion at all, actually.
I didn't know anything about him really. I didn't really know anything about him yet.
Yeah, so okay.
I find it shocking. David doesn't have an opinion of a character at first.
Well,
No.
Yeah, I've been agreeing with David on everything this podcast. Yeah, but I didn't really have much of an opinion. I can be a dick when I'm tired too. And I'm not a dick most days, just when I'm tired. So.
But yeah, it's just this new introduction of those characters that had me like wanting to talk to them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if what was your opinion on this, Hark, if you ever felt this, but did you feel a little scared of Jane when you tried to go talk to her?
Yes, a little bit, just because I actually get intimidated by strong women, but in a respectful kind of way. Because I actually liked it when I know some people, a bunch of you guys got a little shocked and intimidated by her with what she did with Troy. I actually really liked what she did with Troy, because any girl who's able to manipulate people in that way, for the benefit of the rest of the group, I'm like, if you're able to do that, girl, then do what you need to do.
More power to her. I was just at the time I was just nervous that she might do that to some of us or one of us.
I'm gonna say I didn't really like what she did. Like, that was pretty low. Like, if she had shot him a little bit lower, I could have understood that. But like where she shot him, that was pretty harmful.
Which makes me think that something maybe similar like what happened with Molly it makes me think that something happened between the two of them that would set her off.
You actually mentioned that you help me, I help you. And it's insinuated that he wants to have sex with her, so I think nope, not having any of that.
Right.
Yeah, I completely agree with David on this. I knew what they were talking about because I always hang out. I've been hanging out with all these new friends of mine, and they're always doing this like, hey, you help me, and I'll help you. I was like, oh boy, I know where this is going. But
and I remember when I approached her for the first time when she was laying down and sleeping. And she just stared at me, and I just want to love you.
You the player, not as Clementine. You the player, not Clementine.
David,
I don't know what Clementine's
That was a
gay,
mischievous Clementine face.
I just want to love you. I'm thinking thinking David just wants to have a little Jane cuddly bear now. Come here, I just want you to cuddle.
Yeah, I'll buy a Jane plushie.
Yes, David, I want to see.
Only in zombie
I want to
gore.
see you have a Jane, poster behind you in the future, in the wall.
Might get
You
one.
might get one.
And then Kathleen would go like, you!
So the next morning rolls along. Troy wakes us up. I personally gave him the snarky clam glare, and I did not.
You always do.
And I didn't regret
You
that.
always do.
And then we move on to Carver addressing the group, and then Sarah happens. That's all.
Sarah
The
moment.
Sarah moment, and what Carver tells Carlos to do because Sarah happens. Does somebody else take over? What were your thoughts on that?
I just freaked out by that point. It's just so freaking low.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously? First he gives this crappy speech about everything, then this is going
I
on.
love that.
And I'm like, so tired of the whole thing. And I feel so powerless. I can't do anything about it. And I feel really sorry for Carlos because he's really trying to avoid it several times. But he knows he has to do it. And you don't hit children. Jeez.
Yeah.
It's so wrong. I've been so morally wrong. I can't express how upset I was by and I don't actually really like children all that much, but there's some things you don't do, and that's one of them.
Well, for me, I think if there was like a little graph, it's like happy, sad, angry, shocked, or snarky, or all that other stuff. I think the shocked meter was more higher than my anger meter. Like I was like, what? You're gonna let this dad hit his own daughter? No way. That's messed up. That's messed up. And I was trying to like cover for like Sarah, and I was also telling Sarah like, shut up, this is not a good time right now. If we get caught, we're screwed. And when she still talks, I'm like, oh great, we're caught. And I'm trying to cover for her, and still he orders Carlos to do it. I was like, that is messed up. And I even stated that you know what, if it came to Carlos and Troy, I'd rather let it be Carlos than Troy, because I think it has a more psychological effect. That if someone else hits let's say your daughter, your daughter has a more psychological fear of maybe other people and of pain, and it'd rather be the dad, because he might do it quicker and get it out of the way rather than how Troy would have done it. So I kind of applaud Carlos for having the courage to what he did, but I'm trying to like apologize to Sarah, but whew, God, he must have smacked her hard, because I heard that.
Yeah. I think it was just another way, this whole situation was another way of him using terrorism to get his way.
Yeah.
And, he uses terror to manipulate people, and it was just a horrible situation altogether.
Yeah. God damn it.
One of the most intense and horrible scenes of the Let's Play, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, not the Let's Play, but the game. You know what I'm talking about.
One of the most intense moments.
Yeah. Speaking from my personal experience, it was really interesting for me to see how really strongly people felt about that scene. And I mean, I definitely don't condone at all people smacking their kids like across the face or doing, beating children and all that. But in my own personal experience as a child, I was spanked as a kid. I mean, so I am not a stranger to physical reinforcement for when we did something wrong as a kid. I never got beaten. I certainly never got smacked across the face or anything like that. But it was just one of those things that, again, sort of brought me back to my childhood a little bit. And just watching how really passionate people got over that whole scene really got to me and affected me and made me think. So.
Yeah. See, I was spanked as a kid, but I think it was like in a loving way. Like my parents like taught me.
Right.
They weren't too brutal about it, and
Right.
I learned a lot about like respecting my parents. And I think there's like a difference between me and my little sister because she wasn't spanked at all. So I can tell that like I like respect them more than she does in a lot of ways. I'm sorry, Joy, if you're watching this, I love you, but yeah. So, but like, there's a difference, I think, between. I mean, like, I don't condone that either, but I think there's a difference between like that and like full on like slapping a kid.
Yeah.
Like that's atrocious. So.
Yeah.
So
But,
go ahead, Carson.
I admit, I think like what Kathleen was saying, I wasn't spanked not that I can remember, but I was smacked across the face, and like I said, I think it's like whenever I said a bad word, my mom would smack me and say, "Don't you ever say that again. You're not allowed to say that." Okay, I was like, okay, and then I'm thinking in my head, okay, I gotta learn and I gotta stop saying these bad words. Now,
yeah. But see, like that was like in a, I don't know, it's like Carver didn't even have like a reason for. He's like, oh, okay, you know, I'm gonna make you afraid of me and freaked out, you know.
Yeah. Well, what I'm trying to say is like I think it's more reasonable like if it was your parent who smacked you on the face or spanked you. I think it's more it gives you that like that parent-child authority feeling, and you feel like you have like it's better that they do it rather than someone else. Because if it was somebody else who smacked me, I would have been very, very intimidated like as a child and scared. And I think it would have been, and I would have been very outraged if someone did that, and I would have picked a fight.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's why I think it's better that it's the parent rather than someone else.
Yeah.
And I'm thanking Carlos for doing what he did.
Yeah. So next, they start doing their chores, their work around the Carver town, and Clem first gets assigned with Bonnie.
Bonnie.
Yeah. And again, this is another scene that I just could not stop laughing when I was watching David interacting with Bonnie, because he just was not. I mean, he already decided going in that he wasn't going to trust this girl, and it showed. But without him even saying anything, it showed.
I just, again, if you betrayed me once, that's all it takes. For me to trust someone.
All it takes.
Betray me once.
No second chance. That said. Going into that scene, I was like, totally, I don't like this girl. Then she kind of grew on me when she started talking, and you had this chance to plant the seed of doubt in her from the very start.
Yes.
And I think I mentioned when it came up that she was asked to join the other guys to escape, and it looked like she actually liked Luke, fancied Luke in a romantic way? Question mark? I don't know.
She did. It looked like it. I'm not joking.
Yeah, and that made me I could use this.
You know what? It's when I was watching your LP and you mentioned that, David. I admit I didn't see that, but once you pointed it out, I started to. Maybe it's because I was still under the illusion that Luke is only for me. But
Sorry, Mark.
But no, I can see that. I can see that
Angel.
there possibly being some sort of romantic, possibly have been something romantic going on between the two of them.